Welcome to the Horsemanship Remarks Show. Michael's coming. I think he's a little bit late too this morning. Oh, I need to turn up my brightness. Oh boy, do I have a lot of stuff to talk about. Um, let's see. Chemistry, Revlon, specific, well, you know, progress over perfection, one of everybody's favorite things to talk about, right? So hopefully Michael will show up and you guys will show up and we can talk about all this. Does anyone know how to pronounce anatomide? Is that how you say it? Anandamide? Oh, I need to look it up. And also, has anyone ever heard of it other than me? Because I was looking up some stuff yesterday and I was like, uh, you know, I had I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that chemical. So I'm like, what's that chemical? And then it starts talking. I'm like, aha, it's an endogenous cannabinoid. So sad because I don't have my little deal here about I don't know how to say it. So Julie, good morning. Have you ever heard of anatomide? Am I saying it wrong? Anandamide? Here's Michael. Chelsea, good morning. Let's see. Let's see if we can add Michael. See, I said bad precedent for being late. That's the thing. We're live, buddy.
Oh crap! Good thing
Well, because I was like, people are gonna think we're not gonna show up this morning.
Sorry, you said give me a minute, and so I don't have a sense of time. A minute
Yeah.
to me is like 5. I don't know.
What kind of chemicals? Um.
Okay.
So I was gonna say, I want you to talk first. Did you see that?
Anything to say? Chelsea, are you coming?
Yeah,
To
she's here. She's here.
I know, but is she coming in a few weeks?
Oh, Chelsea!
I'm
I
gonna
didn't
talk to her.
want you because I didn't want you to feel too much pressure. Um. Let's see. It's a neurochemical. I'd okay, anandamide.
I've not done my
Done your
uh,
homework? That's
well,
good.
I've not studied biology and neurochemistry since last night when you sent me that. So, yep, no homework. We're just going to listen to Emma give us her neurochemistry presentation.
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit. It does. Well, it does relate. And here's the thing. We don't want to get too caught up in the science of it and then not learn how to be, in real life. Of course, that can happen. But there are some interesting components, and I'll tell people how I came across it. But I just wanted to know, did you read the novella blog? And
Mm-hmm.
did you see I talked about your little section?
Yes.
You had no idea how much that was gonna mean to me. And you
Passing
said,
passing comment.
yeah, it was a
But
pass.
yes.
So you guys can check that out on my blog, on my dailyclimbblog.com. It's about novella and how Michael was like, you should just ride ponies. And he wasn't trying to box me in, just noting that I was um enjoying it. So do you have anything else? Good morning, Sarah. Steph, you're here. Yes. Thank you for looking through the new Horsemanship Insider. Oh, you guys, go to horsemanshipinsider.com and you'll see the awesome gateway. Who, Steph, you were saying, so Stephanie, Michael was saying that we need to have a link to get back from, the inside. So from inside Narnia back outside through the wardrobe, like we need to have a pass through. Right now you could, when you're on the inside, it's not a click out to the doorway. So
I've clearly not explored it enough to even know what the hell you're talking about. I mean, I get probably what you're talking about, but I haven't experienced being in and out of sides and
well,
doors
I
and
have experienced
closets,
it.
wardrobes.
I am intimately involved, and I didn't think of that until she said it.
Yes.
So, all right. So, anything? Oh my gosh! I thought I deleted this person's. It's always some talk, right? That
No,
pops up. I love
Karen.
the name is funny though.
Yeah.
right? The like, let's see if that works.
Sometimes I ask the same question, so
Yeah,
not nonsense today. Usually
Michelle,
it's nonsense.
for sure. Michelle had a great lesson yesterday. It was one of those things where we were talking about arcs, big arcs, all the way to tiny arcs. Um, you guys should follow her Instagram because it's pretty fun to hear her writing about her process here. You should write a guest blog post for my blog. So she, you're such a trooper. Yeah. Okay, Michael, what have you got on your mind this morning before we get rolling?
Um,
Look at this is
I
I found this. This was made like 20 years ago.
can't see it.
Maybe it says
Just
northwoodfarms.com relationship first, then dance.
sent me just like I don't know. I think she thought about it, but it was also kind of just flowed out of her after thinking about it. That is trying to describe what is magic, like what the core of why horsemanship is valuable to her, or what makes it so special. Maybe is the way to say it. I'll I'm sure she won't mind sending it to you, but I'll ask her and I'll send that to you.
Ask
But
her.
it involved the dance. She was kind of rolling around on the dance metaphor. Um, well, I got a horse in the other day, 3-year old. Just generally paint the picture. 3-year old hasn't been off the farm since she was 8 months. Lived with two older mares that were in work, and dressage horses that were ridden regularly, but she was not out and exposed. So she arrives here. Interestingly enough, the farm is very quiet. It's a weekend and not too much going on. She hops off the trailer, comes in. I actually wasn't there, but they said she just backed calmly out. And then, as they were getting into the arena, I arrived and she just went in the wrong corral and they turned her loose and she was just walking around looking and kind of coming over and saying hi. Look, just chill as a cucumber, right? Just went to work, right? Um, Mostly she was kind of like on her own terms, wanted to check in, but not necessarily hook on and stay connected. Even though she wasn't blah, she was very much just taking in everything and looking around in a fairly thoughtful, calm way, right? But there wasn't anything to take in outside of a new structure, right? Nothing was going on. It was me and the owners there, my dog, I guess. So we do our thing, and there's some moving around, pretty worried about transitioning trot to canter or trot to lope. Just because she probably hadn't been asked that before. It was pretty fast trotting. And then if you transitions, she made it to the lope. But overall, just like not understanding that connecting was what you do, right? As more than just like, I want to say hi, and so I'll come say hi, and then I'm off to my own thing. Um, wasn't horrible on the lead rope, actually pretty good at yielding, but also had zero attention span for staying with you and zero discipline about being here. Any little distraction was like, I'm up and off and out the door, right? Um, so as two horses came in, one on one end of the arena, and she just absolutely lost her marbles. I think she was on the lead by then. Um, and then someone came, another horse, plop, 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 door open, horse
This is
arriving,
the
and the
new
other
horse
end. Huh?
lost. This is the new
Yeah, the
horse.
new horse lost his marbles, right? Or her marbles. Um, And it's just like, okay, here we go, first time. You know, we'd just been generally distracted, but pretty calm through all of this until I asked you to move out a little bit more, and that worried you. And I had her, groundwork was all coming together pretty nice. And then the test came, right? And I can tell the owners are very intentional and conscientious and thoughtful about how they've exposed her, or in this case, not really exposed her, but like giving her a childhood sort of thing, and having everything be good experiences and not having her get scared, or, and you could tell, right? She didn't have a lot of apprehensions about things, but because she'd never been exposed to anything, the moment there was something outside of, okay, we are in the barn and the arena and the pastures where we always are with the horses that are always here. I've never been away from at least one of them who's always been here. Zero stress in my life, right? And a little bit of a kind of a punky attitude. Um, I guess she had reared a bit for the owners, and that was a concern of theirs, is that she kind of thought up a little bit much, which she did. Um, but then as I, there was this distraction that shows up in the arena. She um, just kind of has to pay attention to it, and like I am completely not on the radar, even though I just helped her through transitions and helped her relax and find a united arc and let down, and she was flowing through movements. And so, right as it happened, I started explaining to the owners, okay, up till now, there's been no insistence on focus. So I could dial this in slowly and let her be distracted and let her kind of back and forth and look, and then bring her attention back to me, and, you know, creep up on this over a course of, however long today and then again tomorrow. And like just let her take it all in. Or I could, given I know that I have the skill to do so, say, up, parameters have changed. We're all going to be good. I've lived here for a while. I know most of the horses coming through here, know the sound of hooves on concrete, doors opening, like nothing's going to get you. You got to stay here with me. And it was intense. Wasn't the most intense, but, I had to bump on her, fold her in half a couple times. Like, you cannot just pull on this lead rope to go, take care of yourself and race around about whatever's worrying you. And, I don't know if it was given my explanation or given their, like, we don't want this horse to become a monster, but they were very receptive to that. And, I think it was partly my explanation where they're like, okay, well, that makes sense, right? Because they maybe wouldn't have been super excited about someone being so direct or firm on their horse without understanding why. So, got through that and it was good. The next day, also very quiet. I was out there super early. Transitions were nicer. It was just like, this is pretty easy peasy. Everything's flowing like it did. Oh, although I did have to kind of um, run her through alleys to get into the barn, because when I go out to get her, it told me this already. She'll come to you and then you can catch her. But if you go to her, she'll let you get up to her and pet her. And then when you look like you're going to halt her, she kind of fades away. She wasn't like ducking or dashing or scared or running away, but just kind of fades away from you. So I was like, I kind of already knew that. Tried to finesse it a couple times where I got in there and just was friendly, but she kind of knew the drill. So ran her up through the alleys into the round crow and did the work in there. Came together pretty quick. I mean, it was all nice and whatever. And then yesterday, she comes in and it's later in the day. Everyone is there. We're just, very busy. And brought her in through the alley again. Um, took her buddy. I brought her in with her buddy, took her buddy out, and um, she was just a disaster, right? Like totally different horse. everything was something to be alarmed by. Owners weren't there, but I'm thinking, you know, be interesting for them to be here and see this because they saw a little window of it that even that first day. But she could not maintain her composure. I kept getting her there. She'd find the United Arc, be working her mouth, be able to like very regularly turning loose and finding peace in the movement, but could not stand with me, could not let down to the point of like it just carried. So it was like 2 hours of me bringing her back down, and then we get to kind of a good place. And then because she couldn't stand still, I was kind of just leading her around. I think I had her on the lead rope. Yeah, I did. Well, eventually, then I took off the lead rope and said, okay, well, you know, maybe allowing you to move more, but still saying if you're not connected to me, you're going to move out. So she was following me around anytime she'd go to leave. I'd kind of change my angle. And she was with me as long as we were moving, but she couldn't get stopped. And I'm like, okay, we're 2 hours in. I have to move on. So I had someone go get her buddy, brought her back in, put the two of them together. Now, mind you, she's like way better. Like she's not running around frantic. Another horse trots past, like just this sort of thing happening, like ready to explode, but knowing like there is some parameters there. Certainly during this session, not doing a lot of backing up because there was so much intensity forward, it would have just turned into rearing. Except in like moments where it's like, okay, she's with me. Okay, now let's pepper that in because we got that going first day and two, no problem to back up. But I knew because she had reared a few times that first day that if there was too much feeling the need to go forward, which absolutely that's her. I've got to move, I got to move, I got to move when she's worried. So her buddy came in. It was like another hour and a half before she was able to stand, just walking around there with her buddy and sometimes getting worried and racing around. And I was actually outside for a lot of that, another hour and a half. But um, Mike and Stephanie reported like she just kept moving and couldn't. And
And she was in the round crawl with a buddy?
mhm.
Oh.
But like everything else was going on around her, the round crowd's in the center of the arena. So she wasn't like losing her marbles the whole time, but I guess like sometimes she'd get pretty excited and worked up and um I guess she pawed and rolled a bunch. Like she rolled and then get up and just have to move more. Uh so in the end then like she's kind of more calm. I What was the sequence of things? I remember I haltered her. I think I probably took them out together. I think I drove them out together down the alley, if I remember correctly. So I just opened the gate and around corral and sent them through the back alley and out to their paddock. But that was really interesting how much she, even popping out in a new place and horses like in pastures, like it was a very quiet day. Horses come and go enough that none of the horses in the pasture get all excited when a trailer arrives, and how much she was moving the whole time, but it wasn't like it didn't feel as much like I have to move because I'm nervous. It seemed very thoughtful and just taking it all in until the exposure was, and it wasn't even a lot that first day. Like overhead door opening and horse coming in. It's not like crash, bang, boom, horses running around, whatever. But it was like there was zero self control, which, I don't know. Maybe I didn't see them interact with her enough to know how much she walked on him, but she never really felt like she was going to walk on me, or she wasn't braced. She wasn't like, she didn't have a habit of leaning on the rope and pulling. she just would when like she got scared and felt the need to dart around, and then I'd have to corner her. But it wasn't like I was going around having to undo a bunch of things. So it was very interesting in that in a lot of ways she felt pretty moldable and clean, but just zero for exposure.
Mhm.
Um, so I
And
don't
no,
know. That was just very interesting. What was that?
no context for then dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, and then the interesting thing, um, yesterday during the lengthy period where I'm like getting her calm, at one point, there wasn't as many people in the arena. Um, I think it had all kind of gotten quiet, but Mike took Poco out, and as he was leading him out, going past the wash rack or something, he went, and I mean, she was in a pretty relaxed place because it was pretty quiet, and boom, head goes up, and just like, and I thought about that. It's like, she's like, I've helped her get settled, but then a horse sounds the alarm. I mean, really, if she's never been around a horse that made, the apprehensive noise, like, oh, alert, alarm, what is that? And not been able to do her, because that's kind of her personality, like up and, move the feet and get worried and prance around because there's been an alarm sounded. Um, and this is at the far end of the arena, like 180 feet away. This snort happens. And it wasn't even a big one. It was just like enough that, it wasn't like he panicked and scrambled on the concrete and you hear a big commotion. It was just a, so it was a very interesting, it was very unique in that it just felt different than other experiences because there wasn't the brace, there wasn't the stuff to undo, but her personality combined with the lack of exposure was just this anxious, I gotta move, I gotta move, I gotta move, I gotta move. Um, and one of the ways I did get her to settle for just moments and stand still was just kind of getting in the way of her moving once it was minimal, less that she had to move. Um, she would just kind of like want to be going one way or the other. And I just kind of have the flag over me going over here. And then she'd go this way and it'd be in blocking her here. And she wasn't scared of it. So she kind of walk into it and then it'd bonk around the nose. And so she was kind of just wanting to move until I was in her way, just pretty passively on each side. And when she got centered for just that moment and looked at me, and it was literally moments, but it built to where, she could stand for 30 seconds, right? That was really literally about it. Um, that was, I think, the the first way, or that was the way I initially got her to actually pause, was to put something in front of her and say, no, like
How?
seriously, consider
Yeah.
consider pausing. You're going to keep running into something. Um, and by the end, I was saying, you're wanting to explode, a block and a backup and settle for just a second. But it was literally like I could only expect it for a moment or two. Like, okay, yep, got it, rectangle, can't blast through here, but I do need to move. So, any case,
Sounds like those people are getting their money's worth, right, guys? Yep. Okay, you guys. Yeah. Uh, Michelle, good. Jeannie, good morning. Who else is here? In school. Who's in school? Oliver's in school. Pay attention. Don't watch the show during school. You can watch it back later. Diane, good morning. Oh, Diane, Michael and I need some shots. If you look at the thumbnails here on YouTube, we need
different
some.
Diane.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Sorry.
This is Diane with Rick. I'm pretty sure the driving. I don't know if you've met Diane's horse. Diane's audited, I think, most of your clinics. This is not Diane. Oh, Fooey. I'm gonna blank on Diane's last name, the one who takes all the pictures at the
Oh,
clinics.
oh, this is okay. Sorry. Good morning.
Yes.
I'm glad you're here.
Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. Lisa's written guest blogs. Yeah, so that's really interesting, Michael. It is really interesting when you think of like almost like the horse not having any context for dealing with the change. And is
Mhm.
makes me think, the people are getting their money's worth because you have seen this process. There's nothing wrong with the horse. It's just like this is just regular horse stuff.
Mhm.
And you just have to chip away at it. And just because they can't stand still today for more than 30 seconds has nothing to do with whether they'll be able to stand still in a month or and I think, Michelle, you mentioned this the other day. Katie, good morning. That we don't have to take it so personally. These are horses.
Mhm.
This is what horses do. So I had an interesting day with Revlon yesterday. It was a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny day. This kind of relates. And the well, I don't know. I thought, well, okay, I'm going to catch her at the beginning when I first turn them out in the arena, rather than waiting till they're have gotten their heart rate going and shuck off the cobwebs. Let's just practice doing it right away. I was going to do just halter her and turn her loose, halter her, scratch her, turn her loose. 90 minutes later I caught the horse. So and this is Revlon. you know and so many things occurred to me, but one of them was just like learning she's learning that in a situation where she'd rather not be caught, for whatever reason, it's like this is still going to happen. you know
Um,
we're still going to get this done. And then also, like, people, this, I wish people could see this, because, and Betty was there actually, because Revlon is one of those almost perfect horses so far, right? But she's still a horse,
mhm.
you know. And so it's just a similar thing of like how you kind of have that, Linda Perelli, like, oh, how interesting, this is interesting. And I was thinking about this morning, right when I woke up. I was like, it's an interesting situation to, just because I know a whole bunch of different things that will help this horse in this particular situation, doesn't mean I can rob her of learning that,
Mhm.
or
Sure.
should, right?
Yeah, it is interesting because what I was just saying about, like, we could ease into this. We could say, okay, you're distracted, but call your attention back to me, and then hope something caught your attention, and you kind of, like, I give you a little space to dance around with that, but then I call you back around to me. She'd be learning, like, we'd be headed in the right direction, right? So setting parameters, I mean, we've talked before about being a kind of an individual choice as owner, trainer, whatever, the person drawing a connection with this horse, taking it forward toward something that they're wanting with that horse. What parameters you set is kind of personal and based on experience. And, you know, one would
Well,
argue some may be more fair to the horse than others, and everyone might have their opinions on it. Um, but even if you are setting parameters tighter and given experience, you can move it a little quicker. Is there still space for the horse to
to be,
learn,
or yeah.
or are you just either doing it for them to where they have to do it, kind of, or getting it done through intimidation or fear, right? And not bringing it out to the side of,
That's the thing.
because when I firmed up, I mean, I was kind of definitely was imposing myself. Like my angle sent the horse, the hindquarters over, and she was like, "Holy cow!" Right? If that's not imposing yourself, that's what is, right? But out the moment later where you go, "Hi, hello, good to see you," that might not last for very long because she's right off to being worried. Um, I had that conversation the other day with someone. I was talking to person B about having interacted with person A, and person A was a little bit upset with how I firmed up with their horse, and they didn't process that. I mean, I won't fault them. Maybe they just couldn't put it in words right then, but I got an email that, you know, this was unfair and she didn't understand why. And um, like, okay, well, then let's talk about it, right? Like, kind of implying I misread the horse. I didn't understand how sensitive the horse was, right? And I'm like, okay, my apology is that you walked away not understanding, right? Um, what I did was not at all unfair, right? What I did was not inappropriate to the horse or misjudging the horse. And so I'm describing this to person B and how it was a little frustrating, and yet giving her, the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, maybe she just couldn't spit that out or process that right then and there. It wasn't like she was fuming and just bottling it in and wanting to send me an angry email later. So person B says, well, like, what happens when you have a conversation with that person and you're like, I stand by what I did. It wasn't like what I did was uncalled for, right? Um, it was fitting to the horse. It needed to be followed through on. I followed through on it to where we were headed in the right direction. I said, "Can you keep doing this?" She said, "Yes." Right? So she was going to, I thought, kind of carry on trying to do her best to do that. But person B said, "Well, what happens when you have the conversation? Like, does, you know, do you say, well, if you don't want to do it that way, then forget you?" Or, I was like, I don't know, let's have a conversation about it. I'm not, I'm not willing to say what I did was inappropriate because it wasn't. My experience at 100%, I know that's going to help the horse and have it come through and tie into all these other questions she had. She might not understand how they all link together. But if that's something she's uncomfortable with, like, she doesn't have to do that, right? I don't have to do that. And if she doesn't want me to do that, it's not like I'm gonna say, well, my way or the highway, do that or we're done. Like, there's other ways to go about this. It might take longer, but it also might be more manageable for her if she feels like what I showed her initially was something that was too much for her at this particular moment, whether it's emotionally, like, I can't do that to my horse, or I have to work up to understanding why you're doing that before I would feel comfortable doing that, or physically, I'm not fast enough to stay in position, or I'm not strong enough to be effective the way you were. I don't know enough yet to feel like I could do that. All kinds of reasons. So person B was like, okay, well, and then, I mean, this is a kind of mini clinic format, and so then she was in the next session, and I think she was very interested and open to the fact that I was like nuancing. There's not a one way to do this, but we are targeting toward the same outcomes, whether we approach it more directly because of our experience or ease into it because of any variety of reasons of which I just listed, right? So I was thinking of that mare as well while I was describing that to her because I just had the conversation with the owners. Like, this isn't the only way to do it, but there's no reason I wouldn't just say clean cut. Now the expectations have changed.
Mhm.
That's not unfair,
Mhm.
right? And it very well will certainly get us where we want to go faster. And it very well, even though it's a little shocking to her and requires a little bit more pressure at times to block, to redirect, it's going to get her there to that spot we're looking for with less kind of angst in the process. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but back to our conversation that I've enjoyed us having multiple times, like, it's just hard to do this. Like, there's a lot to it, right? And thank God I have the experience I do, but I only got the experience I've got by parsing through and struggling through and seeing, you know, kind of pushing the envelope, going, well, I'd like to be efficient and effective at this. So I got to be willing to experiment with this and try and fail and not be clear and all of that to gain the experience rather than kind of tiptoeing along and being afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah. Gary and I actually were talking last night about that gray area between, thinking you know the answer for sure, given like any particular horse owner, can have many different reactions to watching someone else train horses, and it is always colored by what they've seen come through the other side. That's
Hmm.
one, you know and we have the benefit of just seeing. That's one of the things from being with Buck Brannaman on the clinic trail for a decade, is that you see 60 horses a weekend or 50 horses a weekend or whatever, and you see him developing his bridle horses. So there's a element of, and the colt starts as like a super focused version of that, but seeing the seeing a result repeatedly, right? So someone who hasn't seen the result has no context of what that could be, right?
Yeah.
I think of all the times I sat on the fence with Gary, especially in the beginning, where I'd never really seen those kind of clean horses, and or ones that were just disasters. And watching Gary's timing, which was so good. It looked late, but really it was early, you know.
Mhm.
And because I respected him enough, and of course was at his home, so I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit there and watch. Well, then being able to see the result over and over. So if someone has never seen a result, or, certainly people have their own trauma and their own associations, Um, but anyway, no, kind of thinking, um, and then sort of realizing you don't know. But at times that can give you more anxiety, which is probably the case with that horse, right? Is that especially being in a consistent environment its whole life, then and thinking it knew how to cope with life,
Mhm.
right? And then did you watch Devon, the
And
Devon chick?
and
You
there
guys
wasn't
watch.
yeah, and there wasn't much to cope with too. Yes, Devin, I was actually gonna look at I yeah, what were you gonna say about Devin?
Well, Devin, I don't watch all her stuff, although I think she's super duper clever. But I did come across one recently. I don't know if it's new or old, I guess is my point. Good morning, guys. Gabrielle, good morning. So the hard horses make you a better trainer. Yeah, for sure. But I also think you have to have easy ones too. I mean, the whole thing is, I guess, a data collection. But yeah, for sure. Anyway, so it was so cute. Her idea for this reel was that an experienced horse. Did you see this one? You guys, did you see the one? So you know how she does the two sides, right? And one of them was like this experienced horse talking to a horse that had gone on its trip for the first time. Did you see it?
No, but I've seen ones like that, the experienced horse interacting with
So
the young
hilarious.
horse.
Like,
Yeah.
so what's up? How's it going? Oh my God. You know, I just had this traumatic experience. I thought we were the only horses on earth, and then you won't believe this. There was something covering the top, and then they were like, they had these plastic bags covering the whole edges of and it was just so funny to think of it from the perspective of anthropomorphizing is always hilarious,
Mhm.
right? And that's the best part about Devin is she just goes wild with the anthropomorphizing. It's so good. Yeah, Steph, you saw that one, right? It's so funny. So, and what's always nice about being thinking of it in a humorous way is you could just be like, it's going to be okay. It is going to be okay. But the calculation, Michael, I think that's the thing of, even if you're super experienced, you have to like live with the fact that you just make your best calculation of, whether it's better to just rip the band-aid off,
Mhm.
or to, does that take away some of the other opportunities? You just do your best,
Mhm.
but there's a certain amount of, it's a huge gift to that horse to be with you, of course, because again, we just do our best given any particular situation, but there's so much confidence that a horse can get from being with a person who knows how it's going to end up,
Mhm.
rather than, and Michelle, it made me think of it too when we were talking yesterday, or I think it was Michelle. Anyway, the concern, the human's concern, especially someone who maybe has a little bit less experience, about what is regular horse behavior, or like, is there something wrong with my horse? Do they have ulcers? Are they lame? Are they hungry? Are they cold? Are they,
Mhm.
I don't know, past trauma? Is like, no, that's just regular horse stuff. It's totally normal. And Susan, I think, no, who was I? Oh, Carrie, our friend Carrie from Canada, who were talking about the wild horses, and the benefit of, one of the benefits is just juxtapositioning with horses that have been, and be like, it helps to zone in on what is regular horse behavior, at which point you can just be like, oh, this is fine, just let the process work for you, no problem.
Mhm.
Or like Nathan, was relaying a story about a horse that just wouldn't even let you touch her face, because, or she would, but she'd be like, get off me, this is disgusting, don't touch me, because, which is not normal horse behavior. They don't really come with that. They might be a little bit concerned, or they might be a little bit bold, like, but it's not the same as like, you know
Irritation. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, this was never good, get off me. But then it's the same thing. Like, well, it's gonna work out. You're gonna like it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It is interesting too, like with the normal horse behavior, like this mare or just a wild horse, how certain you can be that it will come through. And you know regardless of the timeline or the length of time that takes, it doesn't feel like this overwhelming, how
Mm-mm.
long will it take? It's just like, well, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's interesting you mentioned the mare that's just like, "Eh," or a horse that has something that it's learned, like a learned behavior, an evasion, or kind of an irritation, as the switching tail, just kind of habitually pissed off by what you're doing. That is not normal horse behavior. It's learned that by being, you know, kind of trapped in a situation that it doesn't understand or doesn't like and can't get out of. And so these,
Doesn't go to the other side.
yeah, it never gets to the other side of feeling good to the horse. So then you have a situation like that. And so talking to this group of the kind of the clinic I was doing the other day, and um, I was just like, just you can't get after her for it. Like, just don't worry about it. And yet I'm like, what's gonna change this horse's mind is not doing more of the thing you know to do in terms of movements, right? Like this horse knows how to do a united circle, knows how to yield the hindquarter. Like all of that is in there. What pisses her off is the fact that you're just doing it all the time and it's not interesting to her. She doesn't feel like she's a winner. Like when you get to riding, you're kind of mashing her in and making her do stuff, and that's making her more pissed. Like the whole thing just feels shitty to her. And so I'm in that situation. I'm going, God dang, I don't know how long this is going to take. Right. Combine her with the owner who's going to have to kind of open up their mind to, okay, how can I be creative? How can I like tap her interest? How can I kind of repair what has been a kind of crummy feeling relationship? Um, Interactions just have, as a general rule, been distasteful. Like to turn the tide of building that horse's confidence that it's different now is going to take a while because there's going to be a lot of interactions that are given their best effort are still going to, or even given their best effort, are still going to be unpleasant to this horse, and she's going to have an opinion about them. So it was much easier for me to confidently say, even if I was working horse A and horse B, horse A being the one that came in the other day and is real just underexposed and reacting to things, and this other horse that I was helping someone with is just pissed off about basically anything, even though she could kind of go through the motions and do everything. In the one case, is like, well, this horse is kind of a disaster, but like repeat and she'll get over it and whatever. And I mean, sure, it depends on you're being patient and you're having some feel, and that will speed it up versus someone who doesn't really have an idea of how to get you through it or get her through it and help her out. Um, but again, even if I had the other horse and I was the one working with it, it'd be a little bit more like finessing, like, how do I rebuild, like, get back to zero and have you engaged in what we're doing rather than coming into it with the idea that this is going to be miserable.
Right.
Um,
It's a difference between coming in and being like, what is this? This is overwhelming, and being like convinced of
mhm,
how it's going to be.
yeah.
It's like, that's which is the same for the person, of course, as
Yeah.
from the coach's perspective. So, sometimes, with our friends, it's like that state of like wonderment and the state of unsureness. There's a difference that's almost more valuable. Well, I would say it's really is more valuable than just being convinced you know everything, even from our experience level.
Mhm,
There are some things we're very sure of, but staying open and pliable to what else is, just doesn't it make sense that there's things we don't know.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fascinating deal. What do you guys think? Thoughts and comments. Where are we? Oh, yes. Susan.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah, this is actually a heart. Did I tell you that? I didn't realize Kip said that this is a heart.
How did you do that?
You're gonna just, it's like making a little V. I don't know. So funny. So funny. So on the one mountain metaphor, you guys go to horsemanshipinsider.com. I was so excited to tell you about it. Go to horsemanshipinsider.com, and there's three choices to choose your own adventure, but you got to read the quest on there. Tap the video, read, or tap the image and read the quest. So Michael, I was talking thinking about, like, as we're all hiking around on the mountain together, how important, the which I haven't really been able to describe it, but it's really, really important. And since I've gotten a lot of it talked out, since we've been, we started this whole metaphor on the show. Um, the one that I need to really add a paragraph about, or make sure we give a nod to, is the idea of moving up and down the mountain. That you're not just going up, 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 up. And base camp, as I'm working on this metaphor, is just becomes more important all the time. Right. So if we think about the beginning hikers or people that are, mostly just doing day trips in and out of base camp, how valuable it is from both sides of it, for an experienced hiker that's been up to the peak and back, or partially up and back, to come hang out at base camp. So both for the people that haven't climbed the mountain as high, or haven't, had to deal with it. Michelle was talking about going off the cliff. What was she talking about? Michelle, what was it? Oh, I think something like, if you get really, really stressed out and, just try to make everything happen, you can really fall off a cliff. Then you got to climb back or have somebody else rescue you or whatever. But the point is that it's valuable both from the perspective of the climber to come back and just hang out with the crew, because it makes you think of things from, and you get to tell your stories and interact, and it might give you different perspective for the next trip up the mountain. And of course, for everybody hanging out at base camp, you get to learn from the people that have experienced things that you haven't experienced yet. It's not going to replace actually climbing, but the value of everybody sitting around the fire, visiting, it is, I love that compounding experience, and I would imagine, if we just jump to the Mount Everest mountain, which I think is very different than Pursuit Mountain, because I was like, this has nothing to do with a frozen tundra. Like, Pursuit Mountain is much more lush and glorious, right? But still, if you have been up to the peak multiple times, or even let's just say one or two times, your experience of being at base camp and having everything out in front of you is going to be different. It's like not having read the novel yet and then talking to somebody who's about to read it. So when we refer to situations where in some ways you're like, oh, I wish I could just give you the sureness of that this is going to work out. This is just regular horse behavior. It's going to be fine. You don't have to have some special different recipe for this horse. The process is the same. Of course, not saying exactly the same like some regimented deal, but overall the climb is the climb, and you don't have to worry about, you know, making any huge adjustments. Just go. It's fine. So the respecting someone's questions when they've never done it, and yet being very sure. I think that's such a gift. For you to be so open to that email and be like, oh, and for the person to write the email, from like voicing their concerns and being like, hey, these are my thoughts. You're like, totally. Let's talk about it.
Mhm.
But I have been up to the peak.
Mhm.
That we can be sure of. And then I'll tell you what the trails looked like.
Not the first horse that's gotten worried by something I've asked it to do. Also, not going to have to stay there if we carry it through.
Yeah, and again, with the different trails, if you are fit and experienced, you could take a straight up section, and then you're at a different elevation, like voila, right? But if you're not capable of traversing that section, well, don't go that way.
Mhm.
take the easier path that you can achieve. And the more the fitter you become, the more educated you become, the more experience you have those options to take. And if it's like the best thing for the animal to just get there, like, all right, let's do the little, what's the guy's name? Oh, it'll come to me in a second. Where he put the ladder. You guys know this on Everest.
I don't remember.
There's a guy who put a ladder across and it like saved
Across,
a bunch of time.
across a ravine, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that sucks. I have known it so many times. Debbie was making fun of me because she thinks I don't like trail riding enough. So she's like, "Why are you using the mountain metaphor?" And I'm like, it's so funny to think of because you said it's a similar deal, but like I grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia for the first 10 years. And, this was the late 70s, early 80s. My freaking parents packed us up into the mountains outside of Vancouver all the time. Like I remember sleeping in the snow as like a 7-year old. Corey says, thinking about Michael's new horse, it makes me think of resilience, how much trust helps build that. That's a good way to say it. Yeah. Thinking about the pursuit, I also think going back to base camp is beneficial because I'll know how to prepare and pack better. Oh, for sure. On the next hike. Yes. Tenzing Norgay. Steph. Yeah, that's the one. I think, right? Oh, no, that's not it, is it?
No.
No, it's not a Sherpa. It's anyway, look it up. So and so's pass, I think. Anyway, shoots and ladders. My mother. Oh my gosh, Michael, you've heard about my mom. She's a librarian by trade, even though she's retired now, and so that's the combination as my mom, who's read everything in the world almost, and my dad, who is a mechanical engineer. This is where we get to the middle between the vague and the precise, right? But my mom's not super into the horses. My dad quite interested to talk about horses. Neither of them do horse, but mom, her attention span for the horses is little, right? She'll come here and hang out with them, but she doesn't want me to talk about, theory that much. But she was talking about the metaphor, and I was like, it's a sort of shoots and ladders situation, or like a candy cane lane. And then she was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that makes sense a little. The only thing I was thinking, you guys, is except for it's not necessarily just rolling the dice. It's more intentional than that. But the idea of passing through, either with methodical effort, and being methodical is so relaxing. Michael, how do we say that? Where there's an element of not being drilly or boring, it causing yourself or your horse to get fatigued or checked out, but instead being in the relaxing um, methodology of something that you've either been told, or have practiced. So go back to the hiking, here's where your heart rate needs to be. Here's kind of the pacing of like make sure you're drinking water at this or that. So I just did a video for you guys regarding steady pressure. You'll just have to watch it for how cute River is and see if I did a good job. But some people weren't clear, Michael, when I put it on the levels. Like, what do you mean the difference between driving pressure and steady pressure? Anyway, so just did a little short video for you guys about it. And I used River because she has super long hair, and so I was talking about just being methodical about hair, skin, muscle, bone, in terms of like that's the oscillation you go through, and it's no big stress. So having a methodology, and like Buck would say, just be methodical, assemble everything. And that's one of my favorite quotes from him because it's so relaxing. But that doesn't mean it's effortless.
Hmm.
Oh, I, I always want to get that across. It's like you don't have to necessarily be full of angst, although that's part of it. In some ways, even like let's say with Revlon, it's like, well, everything's been perfect now. Seriously, it's taking me 90 minutes to catch her.
Well, I think it's to the comment of resilience, which using it slightly not in a different way than Corey, but a different context. Um, if you think of shoots and ladders, and you think of kids and games, and when they're younger, like they can just melt down at not winning, right? It's like, dude, it's just a game, right? But they're just the world has ended because I didn't win. And then eventually, so now Lydia loves games. And I think when she was younger, she could not handle losing. Right now, she's not used to losing, but when she loses, she's just like, let's play again. Like, I'm going to beat you this next time. Like, even if it's a game of chance, she is so convinced she's going to win and is delighted when she does because she wins so many games. But then Levi, kind of doesn't care for games, but mostly because he's playing the game, and before he's even losing, he's anticipating losing, even if he's winning. And so he's like, this stinks, you know, because, and then the whole process is miserable because he's upset that he's got the potential of losing, right? And so then he loses, and then it confirms the bias that, I hate games and games are awful. Or he wins and doesn't allow that to be enjoyable. It's dismissed as, well, I won that time, but usually I lose, right? I mean, whatever. So you think of the shoots and ladders. Well, when you slide down the chute, like if you have the resilience to, hey, this is gonna work out. This is part of it. Keep going. I don't have to be worried. I can be methodical. Um,
Hillary,
just
yeah,
keep at it. It's not hard, but um, I mean it.
just persist.
It's not, you don't have to be angsty about it, but you do have to work at it, persist. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was my comment to Betty as we were getting towards the end, yesterday, and she was getting cold, and I'm starting to freak out because, well, just saying, there was a time limit um before, Debbie was going to want to shut everything down. Of course, I'm in the mode of like, well, I'll be out here till tomorrow until this
Hmm.
horse, because I am thinking about this horse's 20 to 30-year lifespan. I'm like,
Yeah.
everything is canceled now. Kip's going to have to, but Betty was like, no, no, because she could see, that we were almost there. And one of the things that Revlon was learning, of course, as Pat would say, one of the things, or actually Buck said this, I don't know, whatever, both of them. This is like one of the things, Horsey, that you're going to learn is that I will out persist you.
Hmm.
That's just part of it. So persistence, and as a kid, learning to play games, I have such clear memories of myself, struggling with losing, and also, my little brothers and my nephews and all that. But uh, there are times like with Oliver, being like, look at the whole board, or he would say that to his friends. Look, there's ladders. If you go down a chute, it's not about like, oh, there's no ladders. It's just like, okay, on to the next thing. But yeah, your personality, and this can happen too when your ride percentage or your time with your horse percentage is like maybe more struggle days, like you have 3 days of struggle and 1 day of good or something like that, and then it can easily be the good days remind you of the bad days. Versus like being able to just live in the moment. Have you ever heard a friend? I have a particular friend who sometimes when the weather is really beautiful, then he's like, yeah, but it just reminds me of the weather that's
Yeah.
terrible. I'm like, oh no, so sorry. You know? That's like, that's a rough deal. Julie, who is around Michael's kids a lot, the Levi Lydia approach to games is perfect way to teach optimism and pessimism and how they influence how we approach everything. Yeah, we need our animals and ourselves to be resilient and optimistic. That is a great way to say it to you guys, because like thinking about that horse that Nathan was talking about, it's like she was pessimistic. I love that word. Don't you think in terms of horses and maybe as a pursuiters as well. But just to think, well, that's something that can be changed. Certainly in horses, that's something that can be changed pretty easily. Don't you think? Compared to a person.
Oh yeah.
A person I think naturally maybe is either pessimistic or optimistic. Wouldn't you say? There's a lot of just natural bent in that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's maybe with horses it's the same.
Uh, what I do feel like I don't know. I feel like if it's just a personality that's not as warm and cuddly or interactive, I don't know if that's necessarily pessimism as much as it can become. Like I harsh pessimism, like this is not good, this is not going to work out. But barring driving that nail deeper and
Yeah.
deeper and sinking it into the wood to where you can't even get the teeth of the hammer to pull it
That's
out,
yeah.
like that is with mindfulness toward the horse and seeing the horse as an individual. It doesn't have to become a pessimism. It can just be a personality that's less forgiving or less like engaged naturally, less enthusiastic. Um, so I don't know, maybe the stakes are higher. I mean, in a certain way, their stakes are high in with other horses in other ways. The stakes are high with a really reactive horse, like you can get hurt. But in terms of whether a horse is going to become pessimistic or not, the stakes might be higher with a horse that is a little bit more inclined toward being indignant or irritated with you or not being particularly motivated to do something.
Yeah, and there's a difference between a horse being impatient and a horse being just not yet having experienced the peace. Like you think about the horse that you're talking about, that horse people could think that that horse was impatient.
Hmm.
That's probably not it. They just don't know, haven't experienced the possibility of peace when the world is, crashing down around them.
Hmm.
And I think a lot. So that blog I just wrote about Novella, I'm so glad to get that out because she's an interesting thing. I have a gal who helps me here on Fridays now, and I think she respects me, of course, and admires some of the things that I've done with my horses. And I think at times my impression is that she's a little bit surprised that I choose Novella, not or as one of my primary horses, and not because of her size at all. My little lip is on. You guys don't know. Um, but because she's kind of the sour candy,
Hmm.
so out of all the horses, she's the one. But it's like, and then I was talking to Michael. We had this one horse in California that belongs to the guy we used to work for, and that horse was a jovial horse, like personality. So let's just take Novella. It's much more like you get a little bit of a pucker factor to start with, but it's still candy,
Hmm.
and then you have this horse that's like, what's going on? Let's do some up? How are you? You're looking so good today. Did you see the sun is shining? Or what about this rain? There's no, you know what I mean? Like, there's totally different personalities. And of course, in some ways, one is more fun to be around than the other and might suit us differently. But it's not like I'm having a bad experience with novella. I guess that's the part that's hard to explain to people. Of course, when I ride her, then they're like, wow, the horse get we've been just playing with Passage or Piaf a little bit, Michael.
Hmm.
It's so wild to do something on a horse that is they're bred for and is just so easy for them. And because I haven't messed with it until just now, she's just walking up into it. It's so fun. Okay, but was like, okay, well, this horse is talented and this horse is fancy. But are you really having fun? Why are you doing this? And it's like, yeah, but there's something really cool when you're winning over the creature that's not coming from just offering it up to you,
Yeah.
right? Ladies, it would be like having a gruff man who then was really soft with you, like, well, okay, there's a benefit, in that. Now, if I were choosing, would I choose the fancy horse that was also super jovial? Yes, I would. But it doesn't in any way, this is the thing, this is the thing I'm driving at towards the end of this conversation here, is I'm truly not wishing she was somebody else. Now, I've struggled with her size just in terms of what other people think. Okay, that is the one thing. But on the other hand, I get on her, I'm like, this is so perfect, right? Okay, but in terms of her personality, I've never wished for her to be different. Not really. I'm trying to think what is the matter with me that I can't think of the most jovial horse. The one at Michael's was really over the top. Those horses that are just hams.
What horse are we talking about?
It was one of the ones down in California. You wouldn't know him.
Oh,
His name was Moonshine. I mean,
oh, I see.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just said Michael, not me.
Oh, sorry, not you. Sorry, Nathan. Nathan. Sorry. One of the horses that Nathan and I did in California.
Got it. I was confused for a while there.
Yeah, sorry. Uh Lisa, Emma, your description of Novella and other horses remind me of Benny and Scout. Right. Benny the grump, Scout the social butterfly. Right. Exactly. And it would be as weird. I don't know. Maybe is it easier, Michael, because we get a chance to do so many horses? Or you know how Pat would say pick your partner? And I do think there's some value in that, right? Don't pick a total mismatch in terms of personality, but there's there's different roads to China or
Well,
different.
another thing is I mean, talking about matches, certain people are kind of a gift to a given horse in that, like, glad this horse landed with you because you're just what this horse needed. So if the horse had landed with your husband or with your friend, ugh, you know, like it wouldn't have worked. Like the horse wouldn't be where it is today because of the mismatch. Like what that person needs to learn and what this horse needs, like they don't have to offer what that horse needs, and what they want is going to run counter to what this horse needs in the process to maybe getting what they want, right?
And not to say it can't work out, but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And sometimes you're just setting yourself up for misery.
Hmm.
Lisa said Scout isn't a ham, but he's definitely the hi, how are you? What a nice day sort of horse. Yeah, the optimistic. kind of a horse. Why, I have another horse that you would know, Michael, that was a ham. What is the matter with me? But I can't think of who it was. It's just a funny word to be associated with a horse, but they're talk about being able to anthropomorphize, right? Have you read Mastery by George Leonard? Maybe not. Michael, have you?
No.
It was so funny because I was talking to Gemini about the neurochemicals, and telling it I needed a brief for you. And I was like, he graduated Harvard. Don't worry, he can handle it.
Did you give
Give
him?
it to
Did you give
very
him my name?
yeah, it knows that I do the show with you.
You haven't given me my social security number yet, have you?
I don't know your social security number, and yeah, but Michael, that's as much like worrying like, oh, if I mention you in a blog, are they going to know your social security number? It's like, no,
Just
come
kidding.
on, if you don't be ridiculous. But like, we are doing the show on YouTube. I think everybody's going to know we're associated.
I'm I'm I mean, as many spam calls as I get, it's kind of amazing, like when your number is just out there on the internets, that like there is a limit to how many spam calls you get. Like it could just be like your phone literally ringing every 2 minutes, because like what's to keep the bots and the whatever from just, no, here's a phone number, let's try to scam this one. Like, I don't know, I've thought about that for a while. Like, with what, why is there with like this measured regularity, even though it's annoying, you know a few calls a day, it could just be like,
That's true. It could
give
just
me a
be
new
so,
phone number and this time I am not posting it online.
yeah. Oh my gosh, how crazy. Corey says, I told Emma she's going to be surprised what Gemini knocks when her Gemini knocks on her door. That's like worrying that your Google Drive is going to knock on your door, you guys. Come on. Let's not be too crazy here. Or that your computer is going to step out of your office and go knock on your door. Then maybe I shouldn't say that since a lot of us sleep with our phones. You guys, it's organization. That's the huge thing. And, anyway, just you have to all be grateful for it since it's helping me to map out our pathways here from base camp upwards. And we could go on and on. But I do think that it is interesting to share. We talk about everything from the beginning of the conversation with that horse you're referring to, and visiting with someone who maybe hasn't been on the same trails as you, and a concern like, well, aren't you going to fall off a cliff, or aren't you going to starve, or aren't you going to freeze to death, or aren't you, isn't this. And I think what you're saying sounds exactly right. It's like, well, at least someone is not just bailing on the adventure.
Yeah.
Mm, that's a huge benefit. And then you guys think about hiking with a whiner. I was thinking about that the other day as I was thinking about, Horsemanship Insider members and how I love all you guys, and we want more cool people, but we don't want any whiners, because unless you're going to be able to shape somebody up. And then I was thinking, how do you shape somebody up? Well, you have to do it differently than just feeding them candy the whole way.
Hmm.
Right? There has to be other benefits that a person can change. But then I was thinking of how much I've changed from mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, from being on the horsemanship pursuit, and how it is the best to be on that evolution with everybody else too, our buddies, you know. But you can voice your concerns all you want, because I always want to be able to voice my concerns too. But if you're a whiner, hold it in. Lisa, I do not hike with whiners. Yeah. Lisa's tolerance for whiners is less than mine. And patience, Michael, I was thinking about that too. Patience is something that people can start with little bit and that can grow, don't you think? But like with a human, so both with the horse and the human, however much patience you're dealt with to begin with, there's so many factors that add up to what your little patience pouch is. Well, right, but you can get more or less, and that's of course the parents that you come along with, or the person that you get stuck with. So, okay, so we should wrap it up. But there are so many elements to horse training and to self development. Duh. But the mental and emotional qualities that you're talking about with that horse that it just hasn't had a chance to gather yet is such a cool example, because it's like that's not alarming. Where were they supposed to get those things? You're here to get them.
I mean, you talk about horsemanship journey changing an individual and the whiners, and that's just an interesting topic. Like, think about how slow the process might be for unnamed individuals.
Well, that's why, yeah, you guys, if you're gonna sit on the
and
train and cry, it's like, okay, but not for too long.
and how much life outside of horses can influence that. Age can influence that.
Mhm, mhm.
What else you get interested in and wrapped up in, and how that feeds the same progress toward a better human being or a better partner for a horse. Like, let's just keep it in the horsemanship realm versus entrenching other patterns that aren't as conducive to growth in a way that is going to suit the horse. Feed your ego, feed your soul, sort of elements.
Yeah, another thing that connects with my soul so deeply, like I don't even know how to describe how important this mountain metaphor is to me. You guys, when I finally got it hammered out on paper, quote unquote, I cried like giant crocodile tears. I was out in the barn, in my chair, kind of working on it. And like giant tears, like down into my neck. Just, it was so cathartic. There are so many important pieces that, or pieces that are important to me, and qualities. And one of them is durability. And we have talked about this many different times. Like horsemanship, the way we think of it, creates durability in its best sense, mental, emotional, physical durability. So you think of things getting easier, I guess, is what I mean. And not just the horsemanship. Then everyone said, horsemanship in life, it's all the same to me. Buck would say
Mhm.
that. But the durability, that, and not in a calloused way, you know but in a way, like, I guess, once again, I think about hiking through a lush, we have a rainforest here, but and you have beautiful places in Minnesota as well. Like, it doesn't have to be miserable to gain durability, but breathing deeply, moving your body, traversing difficult things, but not too difficult, being with your friends, having to kind of go through the boring parts, dealing with the bugs, whatever. Well, overall, you know, the what am I trying to say? Not just durability, but everything from your countenance to your patience to all the other good things that you get from using what God gave you in a worthy pursuit. So it's like, yeah, we're talking about the realm. Get it? There's another one. The realm of Pursuit Mountain, but it's not the only mountain in life. But you're going to apply the same qualities no matter where you go. I think, if it's an effortful pursuit. Corey, durability in the horses and the person, right? I like that. Yeah, of course. Of course. Although I would say that the horse naturally comes with more durability, but the self doubt in the person, I just can speak from personal experience. Sometimes I just think about that. I just think about what would it be like to have no self doubt? Like just considering how much bandwidth that takes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm having a grand time laying out the horsemanship insider the way I'm doing it. But I was like, I wonder how much more fun this would be if I wasn't filled with self doubt too, you know, because it's taking up a lot of bandwidth, which I suppose is the human experience, or at least certainly it is for me. I don't know if horses come with, maybe they do a little bit, self doubt or insecurity, but it just seems like more of a plague, maybe from the person's side. But yeah, Corey, certainly
It's
durability.
like it doesn't have reference to other
Yeah, yeah.
individuals. It doesn't have a comparing yourself to other individuals element to the horse. Like insecurity is very different than like how do I stack up here in a like am I as good as that horse? Like I don't think they're
Or what does everyone else think?
no, it's like it's pretty clear what they think. Like you're not as important as me. And they're like, okay, I'm not as important as you. That's right. You tell me where to go. And then we can get along, right? It's a little bit less emotional. That's probably the like there are emotions in the horse, but I don't know that they're tied to I don't know that they carry them. Like when they're not feeling an emotion, does that emotion influence, that
Mhm.
other emotion bleed in? I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much relativity and not just comparing yourself, I would say, in the human experience. Um, but like, what am I
Wondering how
say-
something will be.
what was that?
Wondering how you'll be whether you'll be understood, how you'll be, received.
Certainly that, but I guess I can just speak from my experience and right now, and which by the way, you guys reminds me so much of designing the first horsemanship challenge. And I was just, you know, flying solo because I had all you guys to support me, a bunch of you guys were there from the beginning, but nobody else was doing it. So there's an orientation, I guess is the part, and I think it's probably natural and good to be like, okay, am I crazy? Am I like going off the deep end because I'm leaving the crowd so strongly? Or so I think there's probably an anthropological um, guardrails, probably to some.
Survival mechanism.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, it's like, well, if I'm going to be a trailblazer, which by the way I would never choose, but the trailblazers are good too. But it's trickier because you're like nobody's there to be your bumpers a little bit. You guys are. I mean, you're helping me, of course, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, so some of that self doubt is probably good. And the horse for sure doesn't have that, right? Unless, well, the only other thing I would say, like, I was riding Katniss the other day, and so Rook, because Rook and Katniss have been together all day, every day for all winter. They are live next to each other. They get turned out together like they are okay. But getting Katniss out, then Rook calls for Katniss because she's the alone one. Katniss is fine. If I have Rook out, Katniss calls, and Rook is fine. You know, so there's, I don't know if we would consider that self doubt, but it's an interesting distinction between self doubt and insecurity. And maybe that's true because I don't necessarily feel insecure right now in creating this, but I would definitely say there's a lot of bandwidth of questioning yourself, and it wouldn't do me any good just to have yes men around. What were you saying? Iron forges iron.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Joanne says the mountain map is priceless. You were a big supporter in that. Thank you so much for pouring your heart and soul into it. I had a tear of joy myself once I read it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's so nice. It's really help. It's, I guess, once again, like having you guys be like yes, no, like you with the levels. Like, no, that's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it as a standalone thing, right? Well, okay, so that's a guardrail of like whoa, 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 don't get make sure we stay on the trail and don't just fall into oblivion.
Hmm.
So you see what I'm saying? Like I am gently aware that some level of self doubt is valuable, but fuck, it takes a lot of bandwidth. I was hoping.
Also, self doubt, or you can even just say, I don't know, awareness, openness, curiosity, humility, like all of those things can come into it. Like positive words for self doubt. Like,
Hmm. It just
uh,
does take a lot of energy. That ping, I guess.
yeah,
It's like when you're pinging for like, am I lost? Am I going off the deep end? What's and versus like if you just saw the idea and we're just like for sure,
yeah.
convicted, like much easier if it's a religious experience and you can just be like, that's it. I'm sold.
Hmm.
Oh, anyway. All right, we're over. Anything else? You guys?
Yep.
Thoughts? So I'll leave you with the one thing that well, let me just ask Michael. I sent this to him. Tell me what you guys think because as we're designing the mountain map, we're talking about guideposts, of which I've decided there's 7 because those relate to, in my view, the 7 sections of things that we have to learn to do with our horse, the education of building a bridle horse or a finished horse. um and but we how do we define the treasure that we need to find at each guidepost, or what is the difference between just accomplishing something? Susan, if you're here this morning, oh my gosh, I was thinking about you so much because she and I had a big long conversation about getting listitis or just checking something off the list. Corey and I have talked a ton about this. We've talked about it on the show. So the treasure formula, Michael, you read this. I'm going to say it again for these guys. Mechanics plus intent plus equality. Then you have a treasure. Because having an intent without a mechanic and is probably not super valuable. And you certainly can't have a quality if you don't have a mechanic. So that triad, I think, is there anything missing in that? Like I've been trying to think of, the philosophy or the condition of your heart or whatever, but I don't think we have to worry about any of those things. I think if we just keep track of the quality and the intent, which I suppose is the condition of your heart. There you go.
Yeah.
So that it's a one sentence deal, but it's like, geez, that's a lifetime of pursuit. I hope I don't get sick of the metaphor before I get done with it. All right. Well, let's leave it for a week, you guys. And getting close to heading your way so soon. Oh, Corey thinks it's perfect. I so appreciate you guys just being like, nope, that's not good enough. Nope, that's not good enough. And I do get cranky. Remember like a month or so ago when I was grouchy?
Yes, I do.
You guys all probably remember it too. What? I told you it wasn't going to last.
I
Now
do.
I'm high.
Yeah.
I am currently high. Uh, that's all right. When I wipe out, I just rely on you guys to be like, up, 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 let's go. What would we do without our pals? It'd be way worse. It would definitely be not as fun.
Yeah. Certainly.
All right.
Yeah.
You're having thoughts but don't want to say is
Yeah.
basically the deal.
Don't want,
Yeah.
don't want to get started in another conversation since we're already over, and I got to get going.
Same, same. Leave us some of your mushrooms at each trailhead, Emma. Oh my God. Okay, Michael, Michael, I have to tell these guys about anatomide. I think look it up. It's a neurochemical. If you just type it out that way, and I'll do a blog on it or a dispatch or something, but not right now because I'm busy. But when I looked up the neurochemicals, because I'm trying to just running it as a side program, is this question of food as a reward in positive reinforcement versus peace and love as a reward. That's why I was saying it related to the novella blog post.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, well, what is the deal? And I won't go into the story of how I started thinking about this because it related to me in terms of neurochemicals. But basically, I came across this word, anandamide or anatomide. I
I think
think
it
it's
was anatomide.
anatomide. I don't. There's only one D in there. I was like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of that. And we, endlessly talk about neurochemicals till it's like so barfy. I'm like, how do we have one that I've never heard of? And they started asking around even to my medical friends. And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, oh, the power of AI, it's like, okay, but seriously,
Maybe Gemini just made it up. Just pulling your leg.
possible because I was like, wait a minute here. I have not
You're
cross
like,
referenced.
I want something. And he's like, oh,
No, I
she's not
did
gonna be
not.
satisfied unless I give her something. I gotta make some shit up here.
It's
Make
so
sure she still likes me. There's gotta be something here. There's gotta be something.
I definitely should
Hey, how
have.
about this?
But it was just so funny because our licking the mushrooms, and some of
Yeah.
my other, Nathan has referred to this multiple times. He's like, that's totally, or he'll call me, and he'll be like, I am high. I have been licking the mushrooms. Okay, so here's the deal with anatomide is that it is an endogenous, so that means it's naturally occurring neurochemical that is essentially THC. So I personally don't have I basically have no experience with drugs of any kind, naturally occurring mushrooms or any other plant, but I get the gist of it, and so it is a naturally occurring cannabinoid that gets triggered by things that we do. And so that feeling of peace and harmony that we get from um, serotonin is basically mixed with we'd have to measure, I suppose, in horses, but anatomide comes from some sort of Sanskrit word referring to bliss, Tell me if that doesn't ring true. Anyway, look it up. I'll write about it later. But double check me. Somebody please message me if they're like, this is bullshit. But I don't think so. All right, you guys. Well, how about this? Michael and I will see you next Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
8:30 Central.
Thanks for being with us, you guys. Bye.
Have a day.